You're right guys, Gary aka Hopeless back again, and in this video I'll be looking at how I painted this. This is the Gravedigger from Printed Obsession. He is someone that I back on Patreon, and he releases 3D files to print each month. Obviously I have a 3D printer, it's great. And these are the settings I use on screen right now. Yeah, it's got a Mars Elegoo, or an Elegoo Mars standard printer. And just in case you couldn't read that quick enough, standard settings I use ABS like grey, layer height 0.05mm, 5 on the bottom layer, 9 seconds exposure time, 65 seconds of the bottom exposure time, blah 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 blah. And I think it comes out pretty well. This was printed at 32mm scale, I think is the default. I normally print slightly larger. As always, it is a black primer with Liquitex white acrylic ink as the zenithal highlights. And then for the flesh, I put a base down of pale pink from Acryl. Quite like this one. I did go over it a few times just to make sure that the colour went down quite smoothly, and once all that was dry, I got the Guilliman Flesh Contrast paint and used it as a wash over it, and it does give this really nice bronzed effect. Quite like this for my skin tones. And yeah, as you can see, he's probably the most sun-tanned Gravedigger you're likely to see. If you spend a lot of time looking at Gravediggers, I guess. And while that was drying, I broke out the Skeletal Horde contrast paint to do the skulls that he was currently stood upon. Not quite sure why a Gravedigger would be standing on a pile of skulls, if I'm honest, but I think it looks quite nice. Sticking with the contrast paints, I got Aggaros Dunes out to do the dirt in between the skulls. I just wanted something that wasn't too dark, because the colour scheme I had in my head was already pretty heavy on the browns, and I didn't want it looking, well, yeah, didn't want it looking too dark really. That was my basic thinking on this. And I figured that there was enough difference between the skulls and the dirt this way that it'd break everything up really. Also going to point out, really like using this painting handle from Redgrass games. Quite happy to have backed it in the Kickstarter before it came out. Sticking again with the contrast paints, I got the Snakebite leather out to do his apron bits. I'm guessing it's an apron? I'm pretty sure it's an apron. Protective clothing. I think with the zenithal highlighting, the contrast paints do work really well. Basilicanum grey is what I used for the stones that he stood on. I like it. It's not as dark as Black Templar, and I think it gives a better effect than just using Nuln Oil on most things. And to be fair, Basilicanum grey is what I tend to be using over Nuln Oil nowadays. For the trousers, I went with Instar's Alpha range. This is pure magenta mixed in with Water Plus, another product of theirs. This makes it act more like a contrast paint, which I find the purples / pinks from Citadel don't really come out too well for what I like, but this, when it dries, came out quite nicely. Sticking with Instar, this is their chocolate milk. I use this for the ropes that he's got hanging off of him, wrapped around him, keeping his boots up. General all-purpose rope really. And while that was drying, I went for Camo Brown, another of the Instar Alpha range. With this I did the boots and the wraps underneath the ropes and various belt straps on his body. I decided to go over the mask and the candle on his hat with some Corax white just to brighten it up a little bit. So I had a rough idea of how I want the mask to look, and I figured that it might need to be a little bit brighter than the black that it was. And for the mask itself, because I'm getting used to using a wet palette, I noticed I had a lot of Aggaros dunes still on there, so I decided to mix in some Plaguebearer flesh. Because in my head I thought this will come out quite nicely, it'll look almost like rotting flesh, but not quite. And to be fair, I could have probably added a little bit more flesh to it. There is a little bit of a difference if you look at it in person, but looking it back on the footage, it's not really that noticeable. Yeah, oh well. Live and learn, you try new things. For the hat, I went nice and simple, back to contrast, and I used black Templar because I figured it was a traditional black top hat. No real thought went into this one. For the metal on the shovel, on his boots, parts of his shoulder pad, I changed brand and went back to Pro Acryl and used their Metallics range because I'm quite fond of those, and this is dark silver. And I just realised I've shot this out of sequence, so in a minute part of his shoulder pad will turn silver, so don't be too shocked. For the chains and the various parts of his shoulder pad, I went with Pro Acryl's Bronze. I decided to go against my gut instinct of using gold, purely because I figured he's a grave digger. He spends most of his time in the graveyard, digging graves, probably fighting the undead, making sure that people are staying where they should be, and more often than not, probably making sure people aren't robbing from the graves he's just dug. So he's going to get dirty. That was my my thinking. There you go. There's the shoulder pad being done there. Smooth. While the bronze bits were drying, I broke out the Wyldwood contrast paint and went over the shovel handle, and then decided to use it as a wash for everything that was brown on him anyway. And as you'll see in a moment, I think the results were pretty nice. Now, because I like to experiment a little bit and try out things I don't know if they're going to work or not, I wanted to try and age the shovel. So I broke out the Nihilakh Oxide. I cannot pronounce that right, sorry, I'll put a name up on screen in a second. But I thought it looked awful, so ended up repainting it silver and trying again. But before I broke out the dark silver again, I went over it with Typhus Corrosion, because I know that works really well for what I had in mind. And yeah, I let that dry and then went back over with the dark silver. Like so. And then once that was dry, I got one of my old Citadel dry brushes out and got Instar's Pure Oxide Red, and I think that does a really nice rust effect. So I just went over the areas that I'd gone over with the corrosion, and yeah, I think it looks nice. And there he is, finished. While I remember, I used Hexwraith Flame for the candle fire, because I forgot to do anything with that while I was working on it, and then just remembered just before I start filming this section. So yeah, overall this took me about 2 days to do. Over in the UK we're in another lockdown, so yeah, I was trying to find time and space to do this around the family again. Yeah. I will apologise for the lack of uploads recently. It's been a bit, yeah, like I said, it's been a bit all over the place. 2020 is not a really good year for me at the moment, but it's okay, it's all getting better. I am getting back into this. I'm not going to stress myself out with trying to get videos uploaded regularly. I will do them as and when I can. So yeah, let me know what you think down below in the comments. Do you like 3D printed stuff? Should I continue doing more? Should I look more in-depthly into it? Let me know. As always, I am Gary, aka Hopeless. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, please do leave a like, leave a comment, share it to your friends, and if you're not subscribed, please do consider subscribing. There'll be more stuff like this at various points. Until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Maybe. Hopefully. Fingers crossed. See ya!